in the squadron. They called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Anybody ever see the movie Absence of Malice? A long time ago, it was with, the good-looking guy. What's he called? Newman. What the hell is his name? Bob Newman? Robert Newman? Damn it. Newman. Paul Newman. Paul. He's like this, he's kind of like a former mobbed up guy, but he's running a clean operation, and the Miami Herald or some newspaper, he really gives him the business and sticks it to him, and it's a fake story, and he complains, and the newspaper basically brags that they didn't do anything wrong, we didn't mean any harm, therefore you can't touch us, get out of our office. And he doesn't like it at all. And then what's even worse, I guess they suspected him of a murder. And what they did, well, he had an alibi. His alibi was he was in another state with a girl friend, not his girlfriend, but a friend who was a girl, and they were getting an abortion for her. Yikes, right? So, had an alibi. And, by the way, Paul Newman never told that to the newspaper. The girlfriend did. In the newspaper, being the sleazy jerks that they are, go ahead and put that in the newspaper. Oh, he's innocent because he was out of town getting an abortion for his girlfriend. Well, the girlfriend has a bit of an emotional meltdown. Understandably so. This is her private information. So there's a scene where she is like early in the morning. She's awake and in her bathrobe, just outside. And the newspaper boy comes and throws the paper. And we watch the newspaper boy go down the block and deliver more newspapers. Remember that? That's how we got information. A newspaper. They would throw it at you. And she picked up all the newspapers from the block. She didn't want anybody to read about what she had done. And that was the reach of newspapers. Right? Everybody read it. If you did something, it was in the newspaper. There were real world complications, ramifications. Things happened if it was in the news. It was a big deal. Social media, it's a bunch of billion things going on all at the same time. Nobody can keep up. And weirdly, nothing seems to count anymore. So I am thrilled by this social media case in Los Angeles, $3 million, but that figure is probably going to go up because now they'll talk about punitive damages that you're giving me. I want to go back to the White House. The war is being discussed. Caroline Leavitt at the podium right now. They said the big news so far is if we do send troops, which we're not saying we're going to send troops, but we would not need congressional authorization, and they wouldn't. Go ahead.
States and for our allies. I think that's what the president meant when he spoke with Reuters that day. Go ahead.
The president yesterday said that he had achieved regime change in Iran because the regime has changed. In terms of...
has it not?
Well, the leadership...
Their entire leadership has been killed, and nobody has really seen or legitimately heard from this alleged new leader. So wouldn't you say there's been a change in the regime?
There's been a change in leadership. I mean, do you feel as though...
There's been a change in the regime leadership, which is what the president said. So thank you for confirming he was right.
I mean, do you feel as though you've achieved leadership level or the personnel in place right now in Iran that you're satisfied with? I mean, have you...
I think it's too soon to say.
In terms of highly enriched uranium in Iran right now, is your expectation, I mean, the stated desire of the president has been to prevent nuclear weapons. Is your expectation that the end game here is that eventually Americans will be in possession of that uranium, or you'll somehow have some direct control over the highly enriched uranium that could be used to develop it?
Again, this is a point of conversation that continues. I think you know the means in which the United States would have to take in order to achieve that goal, and that's a decision for the president to make. Brian, good to see you, Brian Glenn.
Good to see you as well. Does the White House have a comment on a letter that was sent from Congressman Raskin to the DOJ alleging that the DOJ recklessly released damning information in regards to President Trump's documents?
Yes, I saw that letter from Congressman Raskin this morning, who I would add has zero credibility, and this letter was clearly a cheap political stunt. What the congressman did here, Brian, and for everyone
sounds like Raskin,
hopefully not reporting on this as fact, is that he took untrue and salacious claims in a memo that was produced by Jack Smith, who has been completely discredited for his lawfare and his witch hunts against this president. And that information was unverified. It never even made it into the indictment because it was so unverified. And what happened to that indictment anyway? It was thrown out. And Jack Smith has been proven, again, to be a prosecutor on a witch hunt against President Trump. He tried to throw him in jail ahead of the 2024 election. The Biden Department of Justice was fully on board with this lawfare campaign. And in fact, this story that was concocted by Congressman Raskin was so ridiculous, I understand his communications team reached out to some outlets in this room who responsibly said, we're not going to write this because this is just too much. However, of course, MS Now did write that story this morning because they continue to be left-wing propaganda for the Democrat Party. But I think Jack Smith has been proven to be a liar and a fraud. And this is, again, a cheap political stunt from a Democrat on Capitol Hill who I think wants to get himself on cable television. Thank you all very much.
Good for her. And she's got it nailed about Jamie Raskin and Jack Smith. It's the NBC report. And they have been excited about it. It really doesn't say much of anything. And, you know, the silly little like, oh, there's a micro development. Let's call it big breaking news. So this is what they went with. Former special counsel Jack Smith's team had evidence that President Donald Trump had classified documents, including materials relevant to his business interests after leaving office following his first term. The memo obtained by NBC News provides a summary of what prosecutors were working on as of January 2023 related to the investigation into Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents. This case, almost more than any other case, proves the corruption of the deep state, of the swamp. They can fool the American people. This is dangerous. This is coup material. This is we're in charge, the people aren't. Classified information. Have you ever handled classified information? Most likely you haven't. Some have. I have. It was no big deal. I'm not bragging. I was in the military. Basically, we had all kinds of classified information, manuals, weather reports, that kind of thing. It was just a great big logistical pain in the ass. It was a way to get in trouble. I never really got anything all that useful out of these documents, ever, quite frankly. You could say the weather. Well, there were other places to get the weather. You know what I mean? It wasn't that like nobody has a monopoly on weather forecasting. Mike Woods, in my opinion, does a great job. The CIA, Trump had in his possession some highly sensitive documents, the type of documents that only presidents and officials with the most sensitive authority have. Yeah, no kidding. President of the United States. And these were in the most secure location imaginable, Mar-a-Lago. Quite frankly, in some ways, more secure than the White House. How many times does somebody jump the fence at the White House? Happens a couple of times a year. How many times did somebody jump into Mar-a-Lago? I think it's happened twice in the past 10 years. The last guy got shot in the head by the Secret Service and local police. That included one document that was previously accessible by only 6 people, including the president. That document is one we will need, the prosecutor said. Smith's team also wrote Trump had many documents in his possession, so many and in so many different places that it's hard to fathom that he was not aware. This is the kind of stuff, like if you are an employee of Exxon, right? You spent a lot of years in Exxon, they were giving you memos and stuff like that. You might have some, I don't know, Exxon stationery. When you retire, when you move on, you're going to have some stuff with Exxon's name on it. Just like this, you're going to have stuff with America's name on it. He was America. He was the executive branch. All of that crap, all of these intelligence agencies, and let me tell you something about these intelligence agencies. Totally corrupt, and now this massive anti-Israel bias. I had no idea. I thought, how could anybody be so stupid as to flirt with anti-Semitism? If you grew up when I grew up, you saw all of these TV movies about the Holocaust, and never again, never again, never again, never again. It was, I mean, how could you not come away with that message after seeing what happened? Joe Kent and his 18 intelligence services and agencies. Well, they said that Iran had no nuclear. No, they didn't actually say that. And no kidding that they hedged. You read one of these intelligence reports, they are so contradictory. They are trying to be all things to all of their consumers, their intelligence product, that it's essentially useless. This is the tell again when he says, where is this thing? Where is it where he says 18 intelligence groups? This is where he's lying. Or, worse, using the system against the president. The system. Weaponizing the system, if you will. Let's see here. This is Joe Kent. Hit me with this one. Cut 20, if you don't mind. Cut 20. This is from the Mark Levin Show.
President Trump and the former supreme leader of Iran agreed that Iran was not going to get a nuclear weapon. They were
and you believed them.
Table.
You believe
so? I believe the 18 members of the intelligence community. Mark, I believe the 18 intelligence agencies that said that Iran was not developing a nuclear weapon.
But guess what? The president agrees with his own conclusions. The CIA director that says you're full of baloney.
So,
the DNI, who's responsible for representing the 18 intelligence community, 18
but
agencies.
See, they make it sound like it's so neat and tidy. It's not. 18 different agencies that they're all basically evaluating the same information. And some of those agencies are not, actually. They have nothing to do with this. The Coast Guard Intelligence Agency, which actually exists, has nothing to do. Nothing. I mean, maybe from a paperwork perspective. Let's see here. We got the United States Space Force Intelligence. We got the Department of Navy Intelligence. We got the Department of Air Force Intelligence. We have the Department of the Navy Intelligence, Department of the Army Intelligence. We have the Defense Intelligence Agency. Did I mention the Marine Corps Intelligence? Then we have the U.S. Department of Justice Intelligence, U.S. Department of Homeland Security Intelligence, Department of Treasury Intelligence, Department of State Intelligence, Department of Energy Intelligence, Central Intelligence Agency, National Security Agency, Geospatial Intelligence Agency. What the hell is that? National Reconnaissance Office, Federal Bureau of Investigation Intelligence Agency. And then you've got your services, you got your departments, you got your national agencies, and it all falls under the Director of National Intelligence. What a great big hodgepodgey mess. And the reason why they came up with a DNI, Director of National Intelligence, some bright bulb thought, well, we need a paperwork solution as a result of 9/11. Got to watch out for those paperwork solutions, you know? We're going to reorganize everything on paper. Wow. We're going to put in more layers. Is that going to help information get around? No, it's going to stymie things. It's going to clog things up. 18 intelligence reports. Hey, one other thing. Remember, and Joe Kent is not out of the news yet. Just a little taste. He got slapped around so good by Mark Levin, and he deserved it. Cut 19.
What I'm telling you is the red
You're
line.
speaking for the president. You said he was convinced by Israel.
No, I'm speaking for Joe Kent. That's why I resigned, so I could speak freely. I watched the.
By the way, that's very interesting.
No nukes to enrichment.
Go ahead.
What we watched there, the red line moved from no nukes to no enrichment. That basically short-circuited the ability for there to be a deal, leading us basically to a military conflict that was driven by Israel.
What does that mean? Slow down, Joe. What does that mean? No nukes to nuclear enrichment. What does that mean?
That's a great question. So President Trump has always said, and I think most people agree, that Iran can't get a nuclear bomb. Now, the former supreme leader agreed, and he had that fatwa in place. So that gave the Iranians
the fatwa meant crap.
To get to the negotiating
That's
table.
where you and I disagree. Guy has a fatwa in place. Slaughters 50,000 of his own people.
And it goes on like that. What's his name? Sounded pretty muffled, didn't he? So with all of that going on, what's the big takeaway? Well, the big takeaway is he's not going away, but this is at this point a podcast bro kind of moment, right? Podcasting. The big thing that I burst the bubble on, at Greg Kelly USA, This is the one thing, even Mark Levin wouldn't take him on about it. His 11 times that he says he went to combat. Got 22.
As somebody who fought myself 11 combat deployments, I spent most of my 20s and 30s in Iraq. Throughout 11 combat deployments, I saw the failures of the government establishment. I had the honor of serving our country for a little over 20 years as a Green Beret, went to combat 11 times.
11 times. Some of those trips were, I think, 20 minutes long. He admits in his book that he sounds, well, let's put it this way. They don't call it Fort Bragg for nothing. Green Berets, Red Berets. I've never seen the military so commercialized like it is now. And part of it is, quite frankly, the fault of the Navy SEALs and the Bin Laden raid. You could go back to Marchenko. He was a Navy SEAL who wrote a lot of books, had a pretty successful career. Those guys were fairly rare. Another dude I like, Stephen Kuntz. He wrote a lot of books about being an A6 intruder pilot. But then, I don't know, nobody seems to want to work. Everybody wants to be famous. Everybody wants to be rich and famous. Even people in the military. People in the military, generally speaking, kind of ruled out being rich and famous, right? When you went in, those are two things that are probably not in your future. Not anymore. Vindman, I guess, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, right? And these admirals and the rest of them. I mean, no. Millions and millions of dollars. Hey, I love the guy, O'Neill, who shot and killed Bin Laden. But more appropriately, probably shouldn't have known his name. There is now a huge competition, and I never heard this before until basically the last couple of years. It's not good enough that you were in the military. What did you do in the military? Right? I'm proud of what I did, but I don't think it's superior to anybody else's service. I just don't. And I got a guy online. He said, I guarantee you I killed more people than Greg Kelly. Well, yeah, good. Okay. You know, this guy's boasting about killing 200 people. He killed 200 people. He's proud of that. I'm not saying you should be ashamed of that, but to put the number out there, that is so not an officer and a gentleman. I tell you what, Ray Kelly, to this day, I haven't asked him how many people he killed. And I know he had to kill a lot. He was in Vietnam for a year. And these two week guys in and out, sipping cocktails at the green zone and fooling a bunch of insecure and clueless civilians that you're somebody. You're a disgrace, Joe Kent. You really are. President Trump gave you a lifeline, and you're trying to pull him into the sludge with you. Ain't going to work that way. I'll be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We believe that peace is at hand. We believe that an agreement is within sight.
That is the late, great legend Henry Kissinger, although some people think he's not so great. Another legend joins us right now who I believe knew Henry Kissinger and knows everybody, especially President Trump. Roger Stone, the political icon, New York Times bestselling author, and anchor, host of the Stone Zone every weeknight at 8 o'clock here on WABC and Sundays at 3. Welcome back, Roger. How are you? What'd you think of Henry Kissinger?
He was a very difficult guy. You know, one of the things that President Nixon told me was that he didn't destroy the tapes, the famous Watergate tapes, because he needed them as protection. He said that after I'm dead, Henry Kissinger will attempt to take credit for all of my strategic objectives. Just remember, I was the architect. He was just the implementer. I think that sums it up.
That's so interesting. He kept him around. Why did he keep him around? Because, you know, and by the way, I want to talk about peace in Iran. That's why I'm thinking about him. I think it's actually, we're closer than it may seem. Why did Nixon keep him around?
I think he was brilliant. There was no question about that. He was an astute negotiator, but he was, look, as you know, they kind of reorganized the entire national security apparatus so that Richard Nixon could actually steer his own foreign policy. Why? Well, there were elements his own government didn't want to end the war in Vietnam. There were elements of his government that didn't want a strategic arms limitation agreement with the Soviets. There were elements of his government that didn't want to open the door to China, then a dirt-poor, backwards agrarian society where most people didn't have indoor plumbing or electricity. Those who say, oh, Nixon is responsible for the challenge that China poses us today don't understand history. It isn't until China gets most favored trading status from Bill Clinton that they become the economic and military powerhouse that they are today. So Nixon used Kissinger very effectively. I think as long as Nixon was president, Kissinger was essentially under control. It's only after Nixon's death, or really after Gerald Ford became president, that I think Henry Kissinger gets out of control. And as you know, he ends his life essentially as a lobbyist for the Communist Chinese.
Wow. You know, those elements that did not want those things like SALT, like China relations, we also call that the deep state. And they probably, I think you believe, had a big role in Watergate and in framing President Trump. That's a whole other discussion. But do you go with that?
There's no question about that. And there's proof of it. Declassified documents that journalists like James Rosen have written extensively about demonstrate that the CIA knew in advance about the Watergate break-in. They infiltrated the Watergate burglar team. 4 of the 8 burglars still on the active payroll of the CIA, still reporting to their handlers there. Richard Nixon was taken down for the simple reason that he wanted peace. When they elected him, they thought he would be an unreconstructed Cold Warrior. Instead, he wanted to end the war in Vietnam. He wanted a more peaceful world. That's why he had to go. You see, peace is not profitable. War is profitable.
It's so amazing. Machine. Wow. And some of those pressures are and same institutions applying, you know, trying to control President Trump. They don't like anything about him. They don't like, and they will throw over democracy to stop him. It's still happening. There's still a coup underway, in my opinion. You saw the president recently, I believe. Just tell us something that we might not be seeing when we see President Trump on television. I mean, I think, but what you see is what you get with President Trump. But is there anything else going on that might surprise us?
Actually, it's kind of just the opposite. If you read many in the mainstream media, they would tell you that Trump, he's slipping, he's infirm, he's not well. Some go so far. I think it was J.B. Pritzker this week who said that he had dementia. I've known Donald Trump for 50 years. 50 years. By the way, he hates it when I say that because he says it makes both of us sound old. He is the same person I knew that I met in 1979. He is just as sharp, just as funny, just as self-deprecating, just as entertaining, just as measured, just as easygoing in some ways as he's always been. But you don't want to get on his wrong side. What he says what he means, and he means what he says. And I think the Iranians are finding that out right now.
By the way, just one more thing on that. You know, yeah, you get on his wrong side, you might be in trouble, but you don't have to stay on his wrong side. And, you know, for all the talk of, well, for all of the conspicuous piousness in certain politicians, Democrat and Republican alike, you know, these people are officially practicing Christians or Jews, and especially the Christians, you know, forgiveness is part of the equation. And he is the only president and only person I know who so thoroughly forgives people and can be friends with enemies. I don't think I'm imagining that. That's real. And I think Marco Rubio is a prime example. I mean, the things that they said about each other, and President Trump now has one of his greatest allies, and I think he's a true friend. I mean, hey, who knows? But does that make sense?
No, I think it makes perfect sense. Look, the hardest thing about being a Christian is forgiveness, particularly if you're like me, Sicilian. But the Bible doesn't tell us to forget. It tells us to forgive. God knows I've had many trespass against me, including the late Robert Mueller. Have I forgiven him? Yes. Have I forgotten the brutality, what they did to me and my family? No, I haven't. This is absolutely true of Donald Trump. He does have a forgiving nature. Rubio is a guy who viciously attacked him. Rubio is a guy who signed the Senate Intelligence Committee report claiming that there was Russian collusion. That document is a total fugazi, by the way. The president has put that all behind him, and right now he's using Marco Rubio extremely effectively to carry out not Rubio's foreign policy, but Donald Trump's foreign policy.
It is amazing. And how do you think that, look, I can't tell what's going on right now. I'm tempted to call him, you know what I mean? I know reporters do, but I don't want to bother him, although I did hear from him not too long ago. Do you think this war is almost over?
Look, I think he is the consummate deal maker. He's the consummate negotiator, the art of the deal here. Notice when he said, we're in conversations with the Iranians, the mainstream media immediately embraced a claim out of Iran that wasn't true. In other words, they would trust the mullahs before they trust the president of the United States. Turns out Trump was right. He does have meaningful back-channel conversations going on with the Iranians, who, despite their initial demands, I think recognize that he has the ability to wipe them off the face of the earth and destroy their infrastructure, including their energy production infrastructure, setting them back decades, if not more. So he's holding the cards, and he's basically already given them the stick. Now the question is whether they will take the carrot. I don't think they want more of what happened. Let's remember, we killed their supreme leader and 40 of his henchmen. Boom, gone. And we can do it again if we need to. So I think he's in the driver's seat, but I don't think he wants world war. I don't think he wants to destroy the country forever. I think he wants peace. And I agree with you. I think we're closer than people realize.
You know, by the way, as you're describing all that, I'm reminded, CENTCOM puts out these videos of targets being bombed. And, sometimes they all look the same. But now I suddenly realize that the last several days, the targets seem like decrepit kind of hulls, like junk, like a lone truck in the middle of a field. I mean, this is not operational stuff. I'm actually thinking, I saw another thing, a plane that clearly to me couldn't even fly. I mean, in our own way, I think we might have lightened up on the bombing. And if you think back, we haven't seen any people being strafed or anything like that, and or large. I mean, granted, we only get what we get, but I think I'm onto something there.
No, I think you are. The president himself said a couple of days ago, we're running out of targets to hit, and it is also true that the attacks by drone and missile by the Iranians on their Arab neighbors have really dissipated enormously. They're down by about 80%. In the long term, they have no ability to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. We have virtually destroyed their navy, which was not much to begin with. And the president will have his way there. That's why I think they're going to move very quickly to a peace deal, because their utter and complete destruction is the alternative.
Roger Stone, besides you and President Trump and me and the other people on your list, who is somebody who is dressing very, very well these days? It could be anybody, Democrat, Republican, somebody who's really got the style. Roger has a great best dress list every year. It's hilarious. It's informative. It's spot on. Who is dressing really well? Not that people do that much anymore, right? Everyone's sloppy. But who catches your eye?
The Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, embodies the very best of kind of Ivy League style, traditional Ivy League style. He's always got a tasty necktie on. He's extremely well dressed. Now, I'm kind of cheating a little bit because, I have my own line of suits out at RogerStoneSuits.com, and he's bought a couple of them. But he was well dressed before he ever met me. And he continues to look great. And since he's out there in the media a lot as a spokesman, it is important because people get an impression based on the way you're clad, the way you are fitted out. I think he's a man of enormous style.
RogerStoneSuits.com. Folks, you really should check it out. And of course, Roger, I think the first time I became aware of you, Roger, was in the 1980s, early 80s. And not only you were on Crossfire a lot, but also in GQ a lot. And this website of yours is Spot. Oh, man, this is great, great, great stuff. I am curious. One more cultural question, then I want to bring it back to Trump, and then I'll let you go. Men are dressing like hobos these days. I'm looking out right now. I mean, I can walk 10 blocks in Midtown Manhattan and not see one guy wearing a tie. I wonder if that is making us, I don't know, weird in some way, less professional, less attention to detail. Do you see any negative cultural impact or like even something, a professional impact by people dressing down?
There's no question about it. I think that it is the sign of the end of Western civilization. But here's the good news, and I speak a lot on campuses. I speak a lot across the country. The number of young men who approach me and say, "Look, I don't make a lot of money, but I want to be well dressed. I want to be professionally dressed. How can I do that?" I've written a very long piece about it that I posted online. About how you can be well-dressed and you don't have to spend a fortune. So I think the trend actually among younger men is moving in the right direction. More younger men do want to be well-dressed. That's a good sign for the country.
One more thing, and I need to know this because I'm doing something on it tonight. Walter Lippmann, was Nixon a fan or a foe?
Foe. He saw Lippmann as part of the elitist Eastern establishment. Lipton only kind of grudgingly accepted Nixon's presidency. But I think it was Nixon who said, the press is the enemy, the press is the enemy, the professors are the enemy, the press is an enemy. Write it on a blackboard 100 times and never forget it. It was exactly right.
Well, Roger, it's a privilege to talk to you yet again. We'll catch you at 8 o'clock right here. And folks, you can go to, let me just see, I just had... RogerStoneSuits.com, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And it takes you also to Taylor on Tap. It's great stone, the Roger Stone collection. Thank you, Roger.
Great to be with you, Greg. Thank you.
You bet. To be continued. Give me a call, anybody, 800-848-9222, because it's your turn, 800-848-9222. Be right back.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We are back, and it's time I got to do some big mega videos. Got some good stuff coming at Greg Kelly USA, at Greg Kelly USA on Twitter and X and Instagram. Yes, Mike. No, the other Mike, Greg. The one in New York, Mike. Hold on, Mike Jersey. Hold on, Mike. Yeah, hi.
Hey, sir. So I was just listening to your message before in regards to the Green Beret that was recently resigned and tried bringing the president down with them. So being an active duty service member and being assigned to Special Forces for 4 years, not as a Green Beret, but working with them, by and large, they are quiet professionals. They are the people that don't want recognition, that don't want to be heard about, and they just want to do their job. And I feel bad for people that look at the Green Berets in negative light due to just the actions of one that is not in line with the actions of almost all of them.
That's cool. You're on active duty. That's very cool. Let me ask you though. I mean, of course, no, we don't judge all Green Berets, but it is a bad example in my opinion. And I wonder, I'm actually fearful, and I'm aware that there is a growing trend to kind of monetize in a negative way one's military experience. I mean, it's one thing to learn some skills and apply them to your next job, but, these guys are out there bragging about how many guys they killed and who killed more and, who's got more Velcro. It's getting very, very weird, especially in the podcast space. Have you picked up on any of that? Are any of your fellow soldiers talking about that?
So, in regards to those that we've worked with, the quiet professional is what they are and who they are, and usually the louder people don't pay too much attention to them because it's probably they haven't done all that much if they're bragging about stuff, and it's also takes a heavy toll on people when they do have to do things that the nation's calling them to do. It's not with glee. It's not with joy. It's not like what people see in the movies. They do it because they have to do it, not because they want to. And when they're done, they want to separate themselves as far away from those actions as possible. They don't bask in them. So those that do that are not what we stand for as a whole.
You're amazing, Mike. Thank you very much for your phone call, and please stay in touch. Give me another call someday. That's great stuff to hear your perspective, and wonderful. Good luck to you, and be safe. Okay.
Take care.
You bet. Eli, hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Ellie?
Yeah.
Listen, we don't want to deal with Iran. You cannot trust them. We've got to finish the job. Enough of these deals. You can't trust them. What's going to happen is you're going to make a deal. 3 months later, they're going to renege. They're not going to get rid of the uranium. And then what? Our military is back in the U.S., and we're back to where we started. Let's finish the job. We're so close.
Well, I mean, so close what? I mean, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want us to do?
I want to take over the island, take over the energy infrastructure, and cripple it.
Well, if we do that, they're probably going to sink a couple of U.S. Navy ships. And if we lose a Navy ship, we lose everything. We are geopolitically grievously wounded. I don't think it's worth the risk. And President Trump never said anything. Do you believe the nuclear has been degraded? Of course it has. Has their missile capacity been degraded? Of course it has. Has their ability to export terror? Well, they're shooting missiles off for the time being, but I believe it has. You start talking about taking over their oil, we're not going to have much support. And we're going to have a lot of lives lost, American lives, and I don't think it's worth it. Okay? That's where I'm coming from. I appreciate it, pal. Mike.
Hi, Greg. You were talking about the ICE agents before and how they're treated and actually how they're mistreated. The reality is we have weirdo Democrats who are screaming that, they need to be retrained. If you look at the training of the average ICE agent, they're as well trained or trained better than most local law enforcement and county law enforcement. State, I can't really speak for, but it's amazing to me that, they want to bring these guys in for retraining. For what? To train them to do the bidding of some lunatics?
Why do you say they're better trained? Why do you say that? Because they go through the federal center there in Georgia?
They go through FLETC. They get the same training as the Marshal Service and other places, other law enforcement agencies that aren't the FBI, and they're actually very well trained.
Yeah, I know, but the locals get it too. And sometimes people hide behind the word training. Oh, well, more training. There's only so much training you can do. You got to go operational. And whatever happened on OJT, on the job training, we got that too. Thanks, pal.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?